Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Akron Public Schools Legal Contracts and Board Policy Committee meeting. First of all, we will have the minutes. Any questions on the minutes that we have from last meeting? Any question on the minutes? No questions on the minutes. Do we have anybody to address the committee? Anyone to address the committee? Okay, if we don't, then we'll move on with our meeting. There's going to be a slight change in the agenda. We're going to have our first policy is going to be the personnel communications. The second will be the nepotism, and then we will go to the diplomas for special circumstances, and then we will have the last one, which will be our attendance for a Neola policy update. So I will turn it over to our legal attorney.
Thank you, Chair Alexander. We have, as discussion topic 3.01 this evening, kind of a preview on what the next committee meeting holds, at least part of it in store for us. We recently received another update from Neola on some transportation policies. So there are some CDL license requirements, drug and alcohol testing items that will be addressed in this batch of policies, bus driver certification updates, and transportation policy updates as well. Deb Folk and her team are currently processing through the updates from Neola and will be presenting this batch of policies at the next meeting as they are tied to House Bill 96 with revisions. So I just wanted to give a quick preview that those are also coming on board.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our first policy, personal communication devices.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is policy 5136, personal communication devices related to cell phone use of students. As you know, APS was ahead of the curve when they adopted a policy addressing the use of cell phones during the school day. This is coming from House Bill 96, and of course, our policy prohibits students from using cell phones at all times. And that was, again, ahead of the curve, so APS did a wonderful job in having that language as part of their policy, your current policy. There's been one more House Bill 96 option that has needed to be considered by the committee and the board for discussion, and we'll be there in a moment. But as you can tell, the first sentence at the top of this policy that's been added is referencing electronic communication device as it's contained in the statute 3313.753. The phrase in parentheses, IEP, the abbreviation for individualized education program, has also been added. And then the last part of the sentence regarding students using cell phones to monitor or address health concerns. If the board receives a written statement from the student's physician requiring such use. And then anyone permitted to use a PCD for those limited reasons, including IEPs or to monitor or address a health option, is expected to use the device as approved. Yes, sir. Member Harrison.
I just want to be clear. We're adding this.
These are the proposed additions.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And then at the bottom of page 1, if you have pages, students may not use a PCD in any way. And then there used to be a requirement language might reasonably create in the mind of another person an impression, and they felt that language was trying to turn us into kind of mind readers as to try and perceive what a person was thinking, and they put more direct language You cannot use a PCD in any way that would constitute bullying or harassment or other violations of board policies or the student code of conduct. So they took that kind of guesswork out of what a person was thinking on evaluating that piece. One of the primary points, again, for the committee and the board to consider is at the bottom of this policy update is this option regarding use of phones during an active threat or emergency in accordance with the board-adopted emergency management plan. This is House Bill 96 language, and again, here's where it lies. All districts have to have some language in their emergency management plan addressing student cell phone use. Now, it's not requiring that they're allowed to use it or not to use it. The state is just saying you have to have some language in your emergency management plan. Again, it can say not permitted or permitted in certain circumstances. So that is an option for the board to consider. But by January 1st, the state is requiring districts to have that addressed in their emergency management plan. And we've brought our experts in these different areas with emergency management plan. If you have any questions or you want to, obviously the committee wants to discuss, we have Deb Folk here on the business and operations side. We have Andy Adkins, who manages the district's emergency management plan. And then we have Alan Jones, the director of safety and security here. If you have any questions for them or if you want to hear their perspective, they're available. And then, of course, Dr. Lash is here as well, Assistant Superintendent Lash.
Do we have any questions?
I do.
All right, go, Pastor, and then this is
Thank you,
Arthur.
Brother Chair. I have it's a broad concern when we read a policy, and I know it's not our language, but when we're talking about an emergency management plan as an exception to allowing students to use their phones. They shouldn't have the phones. So that presents a problem. And if I'm a parent and I want my child to have a phone, it almost opens a door, an exception to my child needs a phone because of X, Y, Z. So my broad concern is how hard would this be to manage the emergency plan aspects of this? Because all the kids if something happens in the school, all the kids are going to want their phones to call home. So what does that look like?
Who would like to answer that question? Because we have to develop a plan first, correct? Is that what this saying, or do we already have the plan? Okay.
So, yeah, the district, every district does have an emergency management plan, yes, and this addition regarding use or no use of cell phones would be added to the plan.
Okay. Who would like to answer that question?
Okay, operationally, remember, we brought in yonder bags for middle schools and high schools. So when a student comes in during the day, they go through the metal detectors and the bag scanners. Their Chromebook and their yonder bag with their cell phone go through one set as they go down, so because they can't go through the bag scanners and stuff. And everybody looks to make sure that the bag is actually sealed. So once you leave, our primary concern with an emergency management plan, to your point, Reverend Harrison, is there are two forms of emergencies. One is a fire. We need to evacuate. We have exactly 3 minutes to get a student population and staff out of a building if the fire alarm is pulled. We do not want anybody to your point, opening the bags or whatever as they exit. They just need to leave. The other threat that does come in is the internal threat, such as an active shooter or something internal. Again, we need them to follow the emergency management plan for staying secure in their classrooms and not worry about it. What we have felt that is we would not use these under these circumstances until after the event is over and it's found at the reunification place was what our suggestion would be as to how we would operate it, so that then we could honestly handle that correctly. Now, the Yonder bag does require a magnet to actually open it, and they're only located in about 4 places each side. We will be honest with you, there is a way that if somebody was strong enough, you could take it apart. It rarely happens, and if I showed up on a day and didn't have my Yonder bag, those cell phones are then taken to the office and held to the end of the day because they're not supposed to be in use. So we have carefully thought about this and felt that we would not have them being used at all until after the event is over, and the instruction would be to contact the parent or guardian. The other thing that we also have to operate is the actual site. When those events happen, it is an evacuation out or a containment in, we also want to make sure the site is secure. And once either the fire department or the police department come to the site to address either of those issues with us, once they hit those properties, they become the incident command controller. We follow their instructions. So we want them to have full availability to give us our instructions correctly and followed correctly by our students and staff while they are in command of the incident. So those are some of the processes that we have gone through in going over this language as it came out of House Bill 96. And at the elementary level, although we don't have Yonder bags, students should not have those cell phones readily available. They should be locked in their cubby, their locker, or whatever. So again, those are the instructions how we put the emergency management plan together. These emergency management plans that are on file with the state are also reviewed and agreed to by the fire department and the police department prior to us sending them in. And we understand in working with Ms. Atkins that the state has started to put additional change sheet into the emergency management plan that is already on file, because ours have already been certified, and we would have to go through that process to make sure that we had it filed correctly. It doesn't have any more than a yes or a no, but we can add additional process comments to the end of each one, and you do one for every building, including any administrative building, but especially where students are located, because that's how the emergency management plans are filed. Thank you.
I guess I just wanted to know how this, okay, so the recommendation from the district would be no communications during emergency and...
That is correct.
Okay.
But I wanted to give you the process because not everybody understands the difference about how our different school levels work.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Thank
I
you.
just kind of wanted to zero in on that.
Thank you.
Ms. Autry, and then we'll have our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think my question was answered because I just wanted to clarify for sure that there's only a certain amount of magnets available in each building. So, I mean, I know folks are thinking about worst case scenario. What if these are the last moments? And I hate to say that, but I know folks are thinking that way. But there's only a certain number of magnets available in each building. So just logistically speaking, I'm sure that would be a challenge. So, but my question was around the section that says the board receives a written statement from the student's physician requiring such use. I just wanted to clarify that's not something that you are proposing would come to the board. That is just our policy, but those requests would come through the building leadership.
Correct. Board is in the district.
I'm sorry, Madam President, you had a question? I'm sorry, Superintendent. Jeez, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add that the district does have the ability to do an all-call for the school, so we can notify parents to let them know what's going on. In most cases, what we do not want is if a school is on lockdown for a rush of parents to put themselves in harm's way. So it's best that the district, in this case, would make the communication for the school, instead of the students each calling their own parents.
Okay, go ahead, Pastor Harrison. This is Autry.
This is a follow-up to Member Autry's question. The designated places in the building that has the magnets, are there any mobile magnets? And I guess I would say that, you know, if you have an evacuation location,
I will let security director come up and address where the magnets are, because most of them are actually attached to the walls.
So to answer that question, not in every one of our buildings are they attached to the walls. They are also, because they have been, for the most part, overused, I'll say, we have some that are mobile. That at the end of the day, and you can visit any one of our schools, you will see there are instructors that are holding, teachers or whoever, that are holding a magnet in their hand, and the child just comes up, pops their bag on there and opens it and gets their phone out at the end of each day at most of our secondary schools. So they're not all attached. Some are, and because of overuse, the magnets have become destroyed. And so we've had to remove them. But they're not all fixed.
Ms. Autry?
I just thought it was a good time, in light of superintendent's comments, that we make sure all parents, guardians have an accurate phone number on file. That is so important. I just wanted to make that statement.
Okay, yeah, and I'm just going to comment on this here. As I was thinking about this here, I'm thinking about emergency situations where things are happening, and if we give our phones to the kids and it's not really an emergency, you got people who will be coming to the school, can probably get in the way of whether it be medical, whether it be police, and that causes more problems. So I think it's a good idea to keep those phones away from those kids, because if not, it may cause more problems for those who are coming to help us. Okay. Any other questions or comments about this policy? Okay, no more. We'll move on to the next policy, which will be our diplomas. I'm sorry, which will be nepotism.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this would be nepotism policy. My understanding, this policy has been before the board previously for review and discussion, and even up to the point of a third reading has been my understanding. But it has been brought back to the committee for discussion on some of the categories, definition of family member that have been added. And then with our new executive director of HR, Mr. Canfield, who's here tonight, to also share his suggestions and thoughts, if needed, for this particular policy.
Good evening, Chair Alexander, members of the committee. As David said, I'm here to walk you through the nepotism policy as we see it here. As you know, it's always very important for any organization to have an anti-nepotism policy, specifically public entities. These policies prevent situations in which personal decisions outweigh things like qualifications and performance, but they also maintain morale. Maintaining morale with our employees is very important. Having low morale and resentment, may come about from people who see the system as unfair. So these are one of these general policies that really kind of helps us kind of round it all out. So as David stated in the beginning, my understanding is these additions of these categories of our definition of family member mirror the current Ohio Revised Code language, and that's why they are in there as is. Keeping that consistent with Ohio Revised Code is very important. Going on to the next paragraph, that this is just some better wording to really kind of highlight a more impartial and transparent hiring process within human resources. We also have the second paragraph there talking more about the transparency, but really about the disclosure that's required on the employee application. I did check that employee application. It does require a yes or no answer and the name and position of the person that they are related to. We also generally will put in there on the back of a requirement that if we find out subsequently that you misrepresented or did not disclose that appropriate information, then it could lead itself to discipline up to and including termination. Moving on, I think we have the normal language that was in the policy prior to, discussing those district employees with their prohibitions. Also talks about the application to all of our employees there. And finally, at the end, we had the term about transfers due to marriage. We simply added in the another requirement for anybody to report that to Human Resources in such an event. And then below in the legal references, you can see the Ohio Revised Code and the advisory opinions upon which this is based. Any questions?
Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the back, when conflicts of interest, avoiding nepotism, conflicts of interest, I'm looking at number 3, transfers due to marriage.
Yes.
And as I read that, it maybe is found in another policy, because this seems to close a gap for one thing, but it also, in my mind, some of the things that we hear, like supervision, I may not be a supervisor of a family member, but their direct report may work for me. And so, and I don't want to cloud this particular policy, but it kind of, with the nepotism, you get married, now you're family by marriage, and you have to report that.
Yeah.
And now we're saying that maybe someone has to transfer or not. Are we addressing supervision in marriage? We talked about this before, and it was just kind of like
I wasn't here when
hole.
you did talk about it, but I assume, and what I think sometimes it might get into, and maybe what you're alluding to, is non-fraternization.
Yes.
Okay, so a policy well-deserved in its own right. Non-fraternization is something that we're very concerned with. It generally, as organizations, not just APS, but generally. This specifically goes to the nepotism, having revised code focus on it. Fraternization is a policy you can decide to adopt if you want to. But any situation that we feel is not going to benefit APS, we're going to look into that transfer.
Okay.
In any situation where there's, I don't know how to describe it, if there's just any lack of engagement and people not really focusing on the work that they need to do, we're going to do our best to kind of restructure that under the with the contract and all, but outside of that, we're going to try to fix the situation.
But we didn't make this an absolute, that we absolutely have to transfer someone.
This is an absolute, the way this language is written. Employees who become related through marriage, their own or relatives will be transferred to another department of school when possible to avoid supervision conflicts. So in that situation, if there's something where it doesn't allow us to by virtue of the operations,
Yes.
I assume that's why it's not an absolute. So I apologize for that initial.
No, I was making sure. I think that was the question that
Yep.
came up before. We didn't want it to be an absolute, but kind of have some discretion to operate within.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have one question and question. In the definitions where it says domestic partner, can we kind of elaborate a little bit more on that?
So again, this is the language that's mirrored directly from the Ohio Revised Code statute. I do not know the context behind domestic partner outside of its listing.
I can offer the perspective and the background on that term.
Okay.
You notice, as Mr. Canfield had mentioned, there are advisory opinions also included in the reference section. And so the Ohio Ethics Commission looks at 2921.42, which states family member. The Ohio Ethics Commission, in all those categories that are listed from spouses all the way down through domestic partner, come from the Ohio Ethics Commission's formal advisory opinions. And recently in 2025, early in 2025 this year, the Ohio Ethics Commission issued another formal advisory opinion, including domestic partner in its category under what a family member is. And so that is gender neutral. It says a person. So it does not, Member Alexander does not specify male or female, but a person cohabitating in a common law marriage situation would meet that standard of domestic partner per the commission.
Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure we would be clear on that so we know what domestic partner would be.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I just kind of want to get it on the record. Can you specifically address dating?
Dating.
Dating.
There, again, these categories are just pulled. Dating was not referenced in the advisory opinions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I want to let you answer, Ms. Monar, Dr. Monar, but I had to talk to you about something before, but go ahead.
Yes, so to follow up on this domestic partner, so if someone is renting a room, like a roommate, and paying them rent, but in a shared living space, but not in a common law marriage, but just paying them to live in their home.
A renter.
Yeah, a renter, but cohabitating, like not a separate residence, but the residence that you are living, you share a bathroom, you share a kitchen, and you are earning money from them living with you.
Yeah, the policy does not reference that scenario hypothetical that you just referenced at this point. It was specific about the common law marriage reference.
Ms. Autry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for those of us who don't know, including myself, common law marriage, is that a certain number of years, or is it just cohabitating as a couple?
Actually, Ohio stopped recognizing officially common law marriage. I believe it was 1991. Don't quote me to the exact date in 1991. I'm happy to go research that. But it's been since the early 90s that Ohio stopped recognizing officially common law marriages. And that was after a period of years in cohabitation. So if there's any, thing beyond that, I'm happy to go back and check, on a question that you might have beyond that. But that's my framework for common law marriage. It used to be recognized and is no longer recognized.
Okay, so so we're using that though as a part of the definition for a domestic partner, but technically in Ohio we don't have it
anymore. Yeah, we do
Anymore.
not recognize it anymore, but the Ethics Commission chose to include that reference in its language of a domestic partner. I can call the Ethics Commission. We can certainly circle back and dig into that, but that's what they chose in their advisory opinion.
Any other questions on this policy? If not, thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
And we will move on to our diploma in special circumstances policy.
So this is policy 9800, currently titled High School Diplomas to World War II, Korean Conflict, and Vietnam Conflict Veterans. This policy has been to the committee is my understanding, at least once or twice in the past for discussion and consideration. And Dr. Lash has now been able to take some of the past discussions and concepts and incorporate it into an updated draft for your consideration. And she's here as well this evening. Assistant Superintendent Lash is here to answer any questions or aid in discussion.
Go ahead, Dr. Lash, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Good evening, Chair Alexander and members of the committee. And so this policy was titled High School Diplomas to World War II, Korean Conflict, and Vietnam Conflict Veterans. And so we are proposing to rename it Diplomas for Special Circumstances. And so as you look at the policy, you'll see the language that is original, and see some of the language kind of cleaned up to use words that might make a little more sense for this time, and some things that are crossed out. And forgive me because I'm trying to scroll. Okay, there we go. And so the first part really speaks to diplomas for veterans. So that remains unchanged again, except for cleaning up of some language. The part that was added is the section here that, as Attorney Sapusik mentioned, this committee has discussed, and that's this section here, posthumous and honorary diplomas. And so the language that was proposed before is here just essentially to honor students who pass away while they are enrolled with us or experience a significant hardship and unable to graduate, that if their family or the individual themselves, if they're still here with us, could make a request. And as long as it meets these following the criteria there, that they would be considered for a posthumous or honorary diploma.
Any questions for Dr. Lash on this policy? Mrs. Autry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So under item number 1, under the posthumous honorary diploma, I'm personally aware of students who didn't quite reach grade 9. So I'm wondering, I think that might be something we should remove and just, have it stand as a student that was in good standing in our district.
Okay, so just to clarify, Member Autry, so remove the grade, that regardless of what grade you're in, if you're in good standing in our district and pass away. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Is there any significance for it being due the last business day of March? The request?
Show me where that is, Member Autry.
Item number 3.
Thank
that
you.
Same.
I'm going to confer with the internal members here. Does anyone remember that can speak to that? Why we identified the... Oh, okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Ms. Polk.
I'm sorry,
Is that
go ahead,
okay?
yes. Go ahead,
Okay.
yes.
All right, thank you.
We actually are in the process of sending all the names to the printer of the actual diplomas at the end of March so that they have time to print them. So if we could have it by then, because they start to arrive with their booklets, jackets, et cetera, at the end of April into May and June. So that's why the time frame was listed. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Lash? No more questions? Okay, let's move on to our next policy. That will be attendance.
Thank you, Chair Alexander. This is policy 5200.
I'm sorry. May I
Superintendent.
just ask a question?
I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wasn't sure if I read, is this retroactive, or can it be retroactive if a parent, because this is going into place, but if a parent whose child has already passed, who did not receive the diploma, can we consider that person? I wasn't sure if it was in there to say it could be retroactive.
I'll let you guys answer. I know my thought.
Okay.
But I'll
I just wanted to make sure maybe we address it in the policy if you think we can do it.
Yeah, I think if someone has and they've met the qualifications, and they've passed already, and they want to get that diploma, then they probably should. I think they have all the rights that everyone else has. So it's just my thought.
Sure, and I'm looking at Attorney Sapusik because maybe then we can look at what that language looks like internally.
Sure, we can absolutely look at including language as well. I believe as currently written, I don't think it would create a restriction on a retroactive or looking back, superintendent, but we could certainly look at language if you want to add in there to strengthen that.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be a good idea, because if you have some people who this is going into effect now, but it has already occurred, we should respect that also and give them the opportunity to get that diploma. Okay, so we'll get that language in here and make sure we correct that if we need to. Pastor Harris?
I certainly agree that everyone should have that opportunity, but I do think we have to have we have to have some type of time frame, because I would imagine we will be processing diplomas from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and I don't think that should be in a policy, but I think that some kind of my colleague loved to use administrative guidelines, but I think we do have to. I think we would be processing diplomas from years back. So I think that's just some consideration.
And maybe that could be a time frame of maybe going back so far, I guess, so we don't have so many. But maybe you guys can research that for us and say, hey, maybe we'll come back and we'll start from this point forward. I don't know what that time frame would be. So we could do that. Okay, great. Any other questions for this policy? All right, we'll move on to attendance.
Okay, so attendance 5,200 here. The state law for attendance shifts from focusing on excused absences to really supporting early intervention for students at risk of becoming chronically absent. And so you'll see some cleanup of language in this policy to really speak to that. But the new change here I'm going to point out. So again, that sentence you see there in green, the first sentence kind of talks about any type of absence, regardless of the reason. But the new change here, when you look at what the board considers to be reasonable excuses for time missed at school, you'll see letter G was added here, and this is to give an excuse for driver's education up to 2 hours on no more than 4 days for a total of 8 hours. So you'll see that added, and then as we get later into the policy, you'll see some additional language around driver's education. And so I'm going to scroll to I'm going to scroll down and scroll back up just so it makes sense. And so this next section that you see here for excessive absences, so this is crossed out, again, because with the new law definitions, this definition was removed, and you'll see chronic absence added in the policy. But once this section was removed, it left a standalone kind of paragraph. So I'm going to scroll to, I think this is the second page, but right here in kind of in the middle where you see it start with as referenced above, just want to make sure everybody's with me right there, that sentence as referenced above. So this speaks to the fact that a student may have an excused absence for medical reasons up to 10 with a parent phone call without a doctor's note. And so that was that paragraph that kind of was left there by itself once that excessive absence language was crossed out. Right here, Pastor Harrison. You see this highlight there? I'm sorry, I keep clicking too many times. This is page 2. My apologies. And so about midway at the page, do you see it? Okay. So again, it talks about that a student may have up to 10 medically excused absences without a doctor's note, but with a parent phone call. And so that was that paragraph that was left by itself. It just made sense to move it up here in the section that talks about reasonable excuses for an absence. So just wanted to point that out in case you saw it there. And then I'm going to scroll to, so after that excessive absence section that was crossed out, you'll see that additional language that I mentioned earlier around attendance at driver's education course. So you'll see that there. And then let me give you a page number. So on page 5, you'll see the addition of language there for parent notification of excessive absences. So you may remember House Bill 410 that talked about excessive absences and habitual truancy. And so there was parent notification even with that. So you'll see this paragraph here that just speaks to when a student is absent from school and in this policy in excess of 30 or more hours, then the district will notify the family within 7 days. So that language was added there. And then as you scroll down and look at the section for habitually truant, again, that remains the same, 30 consecutive hours or 42 hours in a month or 72 in a year, unexcused. But you'll see this language added around the district's attendance officer filing a complaint in juvenile court, and it talks about satisfactory progress. So you'll see as we get into other language that's crossed out, language that talked about filing a complaint in court after the 61st day. So once a student had an absence intervention plan, they were given time to work the plan, and then a complaint could be filed. So this language talks about satisfactory progress. And then you'll see, I'm going to scroll down, you'll see language crossed out here around absence intervention teams. And this language is crossed out here, but you'll actually see it appear in a different section that indicates, Pastor Harrison, I'm going to look at you for this one, that indicates that administrative guidelines will be established to really talk about the absence intervention team membership. So, just to give you a little bit, House Bill 410 defined membership of the absence intervention team and a number of days for this to happen, that to happen. And so now there's language that charges the superintendent for creating that administrative guideline around that membership. Okay, so I'm going to keep scrolling. This next section of language that was added talks about a tiered system of interventions and supports. And so again, just language added to be able to implement supports, which we actually have in place already, but really to be more supportive of helping students and families really address what the barriers are to their attendance. So you'll see language there. Again, intervention strategies. You'll see the definition of chronically absent. You'll see some cleanup of language here, so no longer will we notify the Bureau of Motor Vehicles of a student's absences. You'll see language here around reporting requirements crossed out. There's that language there for the absence intervention team that I mentioned, that the district will establish at least one absence intervention team in each school building. And then you'll see the purpose of the AIT there. And then again, that language that we will develop administrative guidelines to address membership of that team. Under educational program, you see the language there that I mentioned before that was crossed out about the hours. And that may be, yes, the gist of the changes there.
Go ahead, Pastor Harrison.
Under the educational program, I have 3 questions, if I can ask them all together. Just for base knowledge, when we talk about consecutive hours of absence, how many hours does a week represent?
It varies by the grade band, but if you think about a typical day being about 6 hours, so about 30 hours.
So, okay, so where we're at in the front here, reasonable excuses for missed or out of school time. This is in accordance with the policy we passed last month, the Parents' Bill of Rights.
That is.
It takes into consideration that out of school religious time.
The release time for,
Yes.
So yes. Yes,
It covers it, okay.
it covers it, yes.
So my last one is this educational program where it says, the last sentence, any parent who does not complete the program is to be reported to law enforcement authorities for parental education neglect. Is the district responsible to report that?
We do report by way of our formal complaints to the juvenile court.
Okay.
That's typically our reporting.
Okay.
In some situations, depending on other factors that may be at play, we may also make a report to Children's Services.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, any more questions in reference to the attendance policy? And you guys will clean this up so we can get a good, clear look at it, right? Because it's kind of tough to look at right now. Okay. All right.
All right.
Well, no more other questions. Thank you, Dr. Lash. And do we want to move to one, or I have a new policy we might want to look at to put into the hopper? We only have like 15 minutes. We'll just go ahead. It's a new for new business. We have a new policy, and we want to make sure that, see if the district has this or not, or already doing something like this here. And I'll let Reverend Harrison go ahead and Pastor Harrison go ahead and bring this forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to introduce under new business this equipment tracking and inventory control policy. I ran it off in a draft state, and it is not germane to APS. It's a looking at different district policies, and I'm clear with the draft on here because we need a policy. We need something in writing, and we need some kind of policy, some kind of procedure of what we're doing. Not presenting this as a here to do, but a collaborative work with the hope that we can come together and be able to vote on something to the board by April of 2026. So as I introduce this draft, I introduce it to give the administration a time to confer with the board members and find out if this is good, some, all, none, but with the ideal that by April we will have something in writing on the books that we can train and follow to prevent any loss of inventory or make sure that we can efficiently track equipment and purchases.
Okay, and I think what Pastor Harrison is doing is want to make sure that we have a tracking system. I know, and I don't know what's going on basically now with APS, but APS did have a tracking system of all equipment items that came in to the district, and they had stamps on them, stamped that they were Akron Public Schools property. And I don't know what happened, but I do agree that we need something like this here to track everything that we have so that we can account for all the property for Akron Public Schools. And that'll also protect us in the long run and protect staff as well. You know, but I believe in policy being a policy that's there to protect staff as long as they follow it. But if they step outside those guidelines, then that's where they get in trouble. So I think this is something we should look at. And I don't know, maybe we have something already that we can talk about, or it can be maybe it's a combination, but maybe we should look at this. Okay.
Is there anything on? Can you? Do we have anything?
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Do we have anything right now we don't know? If we don't know, when we can get back to us and let us know that, hey, we do have it, or that we found something, or that we don't have it, and then we'll use this as part of a guide or something that we can put together to make sure that we can track all the equipment for Akron Public Schools. So do anyone know that if we have this, or I don't know, it's been a long while. I've been on the other side of knowing about some of this.
Good evening. And yes, you actually also have some of this already in place. Our Munis program has asset tracking already in it, and that is your ERP program, in which you also create your requisitions, your purchase orders that help track the inventory that comes in and out. You currently have a property management department in which works with the purchasing agents, and they go out and do those asset trackings by doing a required, already in effect state reporting system by going out and doing those audits. You have a federal part of the system that already exists, that when the federal items are tracked and they come in and look every year, there are separate questions regarding items that are bought with federal grant funds. So that probably is already in place. Could it be tightened up? Absolutely. And reviewing quickly the draft that Pastor Harrison has provided, this would be something that could be worked on with our purchasing agent, along with our property management, as well as our title-funded units. There are different levels. I saw the suggestion of $500. Currently, we track all equipment that is $1,000. So those are just some of the things I saw in the quick draft, but we have it already in place. And our technology is tracked very effectively by our technology department, to the point, along with your books and items like that, they're actually not only assigned to the schools, they're assigned to an individual user. So think of you having an electronic device. We have the serial number, the asset, and everything to the individual person. So we have HAZE, which is another tracking program we have. So as I said, we probably have it in the background and could work on this to make it more efficient in the policy as you've drafted it.
Okay. Any questions? I have a couple of comments. Go ahead, Pastor Harrison.
Sorry, just quickly, I just wanted to mention, we do have a policy currently, and Deborah, you had mentioned that $1,000 limit. It's 7450 property inventory. So again, for cross-referencing and using it as part of the discussion, I just wanted to mention that to you.
Thank you.
I think the superintendent.
I just wanted to mention that I believe one thing we may also want to seek out is how do we make the process less paper and more electronic online. We still have our IF1 forms, and I think that provides that opportunity for things to slip. So I think as we go through updating the policy, it's just the process in and of itself.
Okay.
And we do have a process also for all of our title items that we purchase with federal funds that we do track and label them as well.
Go ahead, Pastor.
So I just want to kind of look at this as a draft for one, but I want to also talk about, when we talk about the vehicles, we still need a policy to give direction. So if we talk about munis, we can track equipment, but we haven't been. If we talk about the property management, they should be doing stuff, but again, in my mind, because we are dealing with public money, because we are a public institution, we should be able to go to a computer and hit and know what equipment we have, where it's at, what condition it's in. And if we got rid of equipment, we should know how we dispose of the equipment. There should never be a mystery. And so certainly want to work on, we can always tighten things up. I mean, I think that's everything. We can always tighten things up. But we certainly need to tighten this up. Equipment, dollar items. And so the munis is a program, and that's good. But the policy in and of itself, we need a standalone policy. I introduced to the board, I submit to the board, we need a standalone policy to know exactly how we do what we do. And where is this equipment? There should never be a question that we can't identify what's ours and what's not. So that's the intent, and I just hope we can come together and have something ready to have on the books by the 1st of April.
Okay, and my comments were going to be the same as Pastor Harrison's. I'd like to see that we know everything that we have, everything within Akron Public Schools district, and we should be able to hit a button, and everything should print out, and we should have where it's at, if it's been disposed of, when was it exposed, where did it get exposed to, was it part of the auction, all these different things, so we can keep track, and that way it protects the district, and again, that protects staff as well. And so we should have a policy that stands alone, but it should also include that piece of knowing where every item that we have, and that would include vehicles as well. Every piece of property that Akron Public Schools has should be tracked, so we would know at the push of a button where it's at, and the policy would be something geared towards showing that we have a policy. This is what we follow. We have all these different pieces, but it can come together in one place. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? Well, if we don't have any other questions or comments, I'm going to take this time to say we are going to adjourn this meeting. It was a good meeting, good discussion, and we do have some other policies that are in the hopper that will be coming out. Some of them in our next meeting and some even after that. So with that, everyone have a good evening and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. Thank you all who were viewing.